Welcome to a special edition of the Focus program. My name is Paul Dingham, and I'm honored to have the Sheriff of St. Clair County, Tim Donnellon, with me. Nice to see you.
My
Welcome
pleasure.
back to the Focus set, sir.
Happy to be here.
We had you here the late part of 2017, and we did a exclusive program on the drug problems in St. Clair County. You now have an update to that report from last fall with year-end numbers. And,
yes.
It's certainly not getting any better, and we thought maybe we better take a few minutes and go through the report again and,
sure.
and bring us up to date on where we are today.
Yeah, we've got all of our year-end stats, and we do the calendar year just like our budget, so it's January to December, and alarming stats. Great enforcement. That millage really paid off, but I'll tell you, 2018, it'll be even higher stats because there's more employees.
Scary.
Well, it is scary, but there's more employees doing more enforcement.
Okay.
So you're going to bring up when you double the size of your drug team, you're going to probably double your statistics as well.
Okay.
So that's part of it. But there's no shortage of work for them to find out there to double those stats, and that's the frightening part.
Okay, well, let's get into it.
All right. So as you look at that first slide, those are our partners. They're at the Drug Task Force, and those are their symbols, their patches. That's obviously Sheriff's Office. We've got Port Huron Police. We've got Clay Township, which was new. That's the southern end of the county. And our federal partners with the U.S. Border Patrol and U.S. Customs. So obviously, drugs, huge problem in our community. And really what we're going to focus on and what we focus on in the Drug Task Force is opiates, crack cocaine, and methamphetamine. And there's two types of opiates, a couple different types of meth, but those are the three big ones that we deal with. And you know, probably the biggest news that we had was that the 2016 we asked for an increase in that millage.
You had not had an increase
never
since the
inception
started.
35 years.
35 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Never had an increase, and we asked for an increase, and it increased the size of the unit by doubling it. And you know, that's risky business. Part of the method to our madness is every 4 years it was a renewal, and we never got greedy, and we never asked for anything more. But and I can tell you, I spent 10 years there. I was a lieutenant. I ran it. I worked there as a deputy as well, and we were fine combating the crack cocaine problem. But when heroin arrived and then meth, it was like having three theaters of war. It was like being in the European theater, Pacific theater, and then Afghanistan theater. And it's too much.
Yeah.
We had to do something, and we couldn't wait 4 more years for the next renewal because it runs on the presidential cycle. So we asked the citizens. They said yes overwhelmingly. And with that, we doubled our size, and that really changed our statistics. And the part that we love is St. Clair County is 750 miles.
Right.
Everybody thinks of their pocket, be it St. Clair or be it East China or be it Brockway Township, but we look at it in 750 miles, and we look at the 110 miles international border. For 8, 9, 10 deputies, that's a lot of ground to cover.
God.
So now we have
that's 24/7.
24/7. Yeah, absolutely.
Deputies.
Yeah, now we have 18 out there.
Wow.
And we can cover a lot of ground. Just this past month, in the same about 30-hour period, we did search warrants in Memphis, in Clay, in Port Huron Township, and in Brockway. So we did them all different points of the county, all at once with different crews. You can send some guys south, working a case over in Clay, send one over in Memphis, which borders in Macomb,
right,
and then back over to Port Huron Township. We could never do that before. So now
those
we
are
can.
only Drug Task Force employees?
Just Drug Task Force employees.
There were not any road patrol people?
Well, they'd be calling to assist.
Okay.
But it's not their investigation. They're assisting.
Okay.
You know, it's our cases. But we could conquer and divide, and that was the whole intention. And frankly, I think we could have tripled the size of that unit and still had work to do at the end of a shift. But you know, you don't want to get greedy.
Right.
And asking citizens for a tax increase is risky business, and I'll tell you, there was a lot of sleepless nights leading up to that August vote. So, you know, we were very supported. So we're really pleased, and that's our staffing, lieutenant, sergeants. Before we had 1 lieutenant, 1 sergeant. So having the sergeants kind of oversee crews, our deputies, and all the partners we just spoke about, as well as it's 2 assistant prosecutors now and more support staff.
Good.
You know, so doubled that. So this shows a little bit of the criminal complaints, information, tips, and then complaints that come
So
through.
the neighbors might see something going on.
Neighbors
they
seeing
pick up
something,
the phone and call.
absolutely. Walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's probably a duck. And that just shows you the huge increase in investigations.
What's the difference between information and complaints?
A complaint is information may just be a tip.
Okay.
Comes in and says this house has got a lot of traffic, I'm suspicious. A complaint would
Somebody formally.
it's a documented, we've had buys into that house.
Oh, okay.
We've taken enforcement action. It may not lead up to a search warrant yet, but there's an open case.
Okay.
It's more than just a tip.
Okay.
So it's really been a spike on that. When we look at our charges on the end of the year, and these are felony charges, 389 felony charges, that's a lot of charges. Misdemeanors as well. So felony charges are, deliveries, possessions with intent to deliver, some possessions of certain narcotics. And then the misdemeanors are more of the frequenting drug houses, that type of stuff. But those are a lot of numbers to come up with, and that's a lot of cases that go into the court system. So very, very, very busy. Warrants and traffic stops. Now these are combined together, and I think we've talked about this before. Many times I will have a search warrant for a house, and instead of barging in the house and trying to find this guy where we're at a disadvantage, we sit surveillance, wait for him to leave in his car. We do a traffic stop, called a felony stop. We take him out of the car, gunpoint, secure him, then we go back and raid the house when he's not in there, or maybe his much safer and much more effective for recovering narcotics. So search warrants and traffic stops are kind of combined.
And that's a very interesting point, because I'll see in the newspaper, Times Herald, so-and-so was arrested on 994, was arrested on 24th Avenue.
All the time.
How do they know that the guy's got?
Because we've been watching him.
Yeah.
And we knew where he was coming from, and we had a warrant for him. We were going to go back and search his house. We waited for him to come back from Detroit
Very
or
good
Flint
idea. Good
or
idea.
wherever they may be. And so there's a whole special team that does car takedowns. We've got marked cars and deputies in uniform that do that. So 283. So you think, 52 weeks in the year, that's a mighty busy. That's a mighty busy crew when you think of just about daily.
Right.
We're arresting somebody, and multiple days there'll be 2 or 3 at once, and then you got to take into account that there's days off, and there's sick days, and there's people who take vacation, and then there's court. They work at night, court's in day, so they'll work all evening, wake up in the morning, go into court. You may be in a trial
Dedicated
absolutely. You may be
people.
in trial for 3 days, and then you have to turn around and go work your shift. You leave the courtroom, take off your suit, go put on your jeans, and
Go to work.
go to work,
You did it too.
Oh, for years, but I didn't have the workload these guys have. And I thought I was busy. I didn't hold a candle to these people. Didn't hold a candle. Now, this kind of gives you an idea. We talked about the geography, 750 miles. There's our county to the left. Now, what's interesting is that, we've got I-69, dead ends,
Right.
St. Clair County. And you got Flint,
Right.
major city at risk, right to our west. You got I-94, same thing. You got Detroit. So you have money coming out and drugs going in every day, all day long. So nobody else has.
It's a business.
It's a business, and it's geographically, efficient place to do business. Then you've got Canada. So you got the same thing, and that's where a lot of the ecstasy, a lot of the BC bud, a lot of the drugs traveling via New York City are going to go through Canada and get across. And you have that mileage, that border. So the activity, like we said, has gotten completely changed and much more complex. Like I said, 3 theaters of battle.
Yep.
That's how you look at it. Right now, our soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq, they're in two theaters, pretty tough. World War II, they were in 2 theaters. The narcotic world in our county, we're in 3 theaters. So we need to do our surge, so to speak, and that's what we did. So we've been really busy. Now, the millage increased, and a lot has gone into the prescription drugs. A lot of education, a lot of information talking about prescription drugs, and you'll see some of our stats as well that go through. And here's just pictures of one of our drug raids that we came across. And there's not a picture that I ever show on a PowerPoint that is taken off the internet that was Googled. These are all evidence photos.
These are all your pictures.
That's Clyde Township.
Oh my God.
I know exactly where that was. That's a search warrant. They got their dish towels nice and neat. And every one of those is an opiate-based painkiller. And it's awful stuff, because once you get hooked on it, it's hard to get, and you're going to withdraw, and that's where this transition right into heroin goes. So we'll see a lot of it. Now, when you look at our numbers on our prescriptions, you're going to see they've kind of leveled off. And part of that is because Well, and I'll go over that. We have the drug take back that has taken
Yes.
a lot of drugs off the street. And as that's leveled off, the heroin has increased because it's much cheaper and much easier to find heroin than it is to find an opiate pill. You know, so people would prefer the pills, but there's not as many pills as there is heroin. Again, you got Flint and Detroit.
So we hear about this drug take-back days. So it's been successful in one
Extremely
respect.
successful, absolutely, and it lowers the statistics, and
Right.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And we've got huge bags, and I think I have it on our slide here where it talks 1,300 pounds of pills have been turned in. That's just turned in 7 years, and it's 300 pills in a pound. So that is a tremendous amount of pills that you see here.
Okay.
So it's just frankly terrifying to us that kind of stuff is out on the street. But you look at our pills seized, you know, and here we are in the years. Now prior, you know, 2003, 4, 5, 6 is when the pills really spiked, and we thought, what in the world's going on? Well, that was right when this problem was starting to show itself. And then they started to dip, but then the heroin came up. So you could see, okay, I know what's going on now. You know, opiates have arrived with a vengeance. So it moved right into heroin from there. And when you look at our heroin, it's connected right on the hip because, you know, opiate pills and heroin is one and the same. One's manufactured and one comes from street dealers. You know, the difference is that, you know, you never know what you're buying with heroin, unlike when you get a pill. The other problem is that the heroin is mixed with fentanyl and carfentanil, which is extremely dangerous. But when you looked at our pill seizures, they kind of leveled out. A lot of that is because of the drug take back and the education, people getting rid of their pills. I mean, there's not a week goes by somebody doesn't hand me a bag of pills. And I take them into work and dispose of them. But look at our heroin.
Yeah.
And that is a 74% increase.
Wow.
That's big. I mean, that's a huge jump that we've seized. Now, in part, it's because the manpower's up. But the fact is there's that much heroin out there to find. Now, I will tell you, Paul, next year, if I'm sitting here in December and I plan on it and you look at our 18 numbers, that's going to be probably
Off the chart.
1,200 grams, I think, because there's no end in sight. You
Right.
know, there's no end in sight with this stuff. You know, it's just an awful addiction. But 74% increase. So if anybody wonders, was that money worthwhile for that millage? You betcha it was worthwhile. That's a lot of heroin that's not on the street, and every gram of that could be a death overdose. So that's important to keep in mind. The labs as well, another huge problem. This is a picture. These are our two deputies, and I think that's in Kimball, and they're out there dismantling a one-pot lab. And very, very dangerous, very biohazard.
They explode too.
Oh, they explode, and they're dangerous, and they produce all kinds of hazards, and they litter our community with them. I mean, they're in yards, they're on trails. We hear about all different places where they're at. So really a concern. We've had multiple house fires. We send those deputies down to Quantico, Virginia, to the FBI Academy, down there where the DEA training grounds are, and that's where they learn to dismantle labs. Because there's so many labs, we can't call somebody else to come in and do it for us because we'd be waiting forever. Because the state police has a lab team, but they're running all over the state. So we have our own team. And it's covered by the federal government because they want your local law enforcement to get skilled to do this, especially when we have a drug team like ours. So again, high cost in the labs. You know, you have to train people. You have to have the decontamination, and then you have to have the storage. Where do you put the evidence until you can dispose of it? So we have a whole mechanism in place, but each one of those bottles, each one of those vessels to the left would have meth in it, and each one are explosive and each one are dangerous. And again, that's laid right out. When they were finished, it was a scene, so we take that picture for court for evidence.
Okay.
And that's another one of our county ones. So it's 6 hours is the average. You know, that's a long time. You know, cuts out of your manpower. That these guys are gone for 6 hours, and if it's at their off time, it's at overtime. You know, you know, it's a concern. But our meth labs have gone down somewhat, but keep in mind our heroin went through the roof. Now, as the meth labs may have went down, in addition to meth labs, there's crystal meth, and crystal meth is the higher end meth. So you have meth labs that are those one-pot cooks that I showed you pictures of. Crystal meth seizes have went way up. Now, crystal meth is the good high-end stuff. Now, if you're familiar, if you ever watched the show Breaking Bad and those super labs in Mexico, Walter White, that's crystal meth. and there is super labs that come in from Mexico and great high quality meth, and I guess I shouldn't use the word great, but high quality. That has taken a foothold as well, and that's shipped in, mailed in, driven into our community, and that's where you see our stats have went through the roof. And our increase on that is a 48% increase. So we've got a 75+% increase, and we've got almost a 50% increase in meth. Our heroin, huge increase statistically, humongous. And our meth, humongous. Now the meth labs kind of teetered, went down. We think that's great until we look at this slide and realize, you know, and part of that is because there's only so many hours in the day. You know, if we were only focusing on heroin, that number would be even higher, but unfortunately meth arrived. So you got to divide and conquer with this kind of work we're in. But those are big numbers year to date. I didn't anticipate it being this big with crystal meth. I knew heroin would hit us hard. 75 plus, I didn't think. I mean, that's a big number. But this is equally frightening. Crack cocaine. Crack cocaine has been here for 35 years. The reason we started the drug task force is because of crack cocaine. But when you look at it, we had 301 grams seized in 2017. Slightly lower than 16, but still, it's a big number. Now, you think about that 301 versus 440. If we weren't fighting heroin and we weren't fighting meth, that'd be 900. When I was in the drug unit, that's all I focused on all day long, and it kept me busy. Now, it hasn't gone away. You know, that's 300 grams that they can carve out when they're not doing labs or crystal meth or pill houses or heroin houses. So it's really, really frightening statistics. It just shows you how active this community is. And again, there's no one pocket that's worse than the other. They're from Fairhaven to Brockway. I mean, it's all over the county. It's
all over the United States.
It is, and you may see higher statistics, let's say in a city of Port Huron, because there's a higher population. It's 35,000 people there, so obviously there's more statistics there. It doesn't make it any worse than City of St. Clair. It's just more people living there. Now, when you look at our marijuana as well, you know, we're still involved in enforcement, but again, generally what we're looking at is when people are really flaunting the ever-changing grow laws. And you know, when we get involved in these raids, it's humongous raids where they're very large warehouses full of grow operations that are completely illegal. And I will tell you, the most violent crime this county has seen and Sanilac in the last 2 months have been robberies of grow ops. And everybody is on this, let's opt in, let's legalize. Well, I will tell you factually, there is no money in this for communities. You can take that to the bank. Whole nother topic. But secondly, tremendous amount of violence comes with this. We had 6 people recently charged, kidnapping, charging, attempt murder for robbing grow ops. Sanilac County had the same thing happen, had a double homicide. And they were hardened criminals out of Flint, broke into a grow op in Sanilac, killed 2 of them, homeowners wounded. That's the kind of carnage that goes on with this stuff. So to put lipstick on the pig is still a pig at the end of the day, you know, and I don't apologize for that. Now you look at our stats, you know, there's where we are in 17. We've stayed pretty consistent, but again, that's not even what I consider one of our war fronts. You know, we've got opiates, we've got meth, and we've got crack. But when it does show itself,
is involved now in politics.
It's very political.
God only knows where it's going to end up.
God only knows, and it's very frightening where it's going. The whole idea of all of this is to have full legalization. It's foot in the door.
Right.
You know, that's all it is, for some folks to get rich on everybody else's sorrow. Don't want it, never will support it, and you'll never see sheriffs support it. But another topic for another day.
Right.
When you look at how you can help, obviously, you know, one of the things that you can do is call our drug task force. Those numbers are, there's no caller ID. Leave your information. Just tell us what you can. If you want us to call back,
see something going on,
call us and tell us. They're anonymous. We don't know who calls. We don't want to know who calls. Just tell us what you see. It's very, very helpful. And every time you call, you potentially, you know, can save a life. Particularly, you know, when we're dealing with this heroin and our prescription drugs. We're open Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4. If it's after hours, call us. We'll come up to the house and get them. I mean, we want these drugs off the street. I mean, I have people have them in their cars and they give them to me on a routine basis. I mean, I have days where I'll be at one of my kids' school events and somebody will say, hey, I know I'll see you next week at the game. My grandmother passed away. I got all her pills. Bring them to the game. Put them in your car. I'll come get them at halftime. So I mean, I'm always getting pills turned into me. So that's not a problem. We want them off the streets so we can dispose of them appropriately. And we've got tremendous amounts.
I heard on the radio on Paul Miller's show, I think it was today, that when you're showing your house,
Hide your pills.
make sure you clean out your
Medicine cabinet. you
medicine
betcha.
cabinet.
Yeah.
Because people will be going through your house that you don't know.
Absolutely.
You might sell it, you might not sell it, or they may just be there to pick up the drugs.
There's a very good chance of that they have no intention of buying your house, and that medicine cabinet takes 1 second to pop that door open and boom.
Fill their pockets, and they're out the door.
You know, and the addicted opiate addict can read those pill bottles like a pharmacist.
Right.
They're going to know right away what's good and what's not.
Yeah, they're not going to pick up the aspirin.
They're not going to pick up the aspirin or your medicine for hypertension or for your ulcer. They're going to look for the painkillers.
Or for your cough syrup.
Well, they might take the cough syrup, but that's
the other thing I heard today, which was I thought was interesting, that the fentanyl is coming in through the U.S. mail because to the guys that are trying to split it and do all the things they do with it, that the U.S. Mail authorities don't have enough budget to inspect every package that's coming in. Again, another problem.
Another problem. And we have a great relationship with the U.S. Mail. They have their own law enforcement postal inspectors, and when they do flag product, they call us, and then we collaborate with them, and we do controlled deliveries, and we deliver the package, and we raid the houses afterwards. But that's just a fraction, because again, there's more coming in they can keep up with. And the fentanyl and carfentanil, which is extremely deadly stuff, is coming in from Asia, Southeast Asia, all over there, and from Mexico. So it's getting shipped in, and then it's getting mixed in with the heroin, and here we have these problems. And it's changed our whole mechanisms of how we treat evidence, because it's so dangerous to the law enforcement, first responding families.
Are the courts supporting you?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got great courts, and we've got one of the finest prosecutors' office in the state of Michigan with Mike Wendling. So they're hip for hip, step for step. We've got prosecutors that are funded through this millage, 2 of them. And that's all they work is drug task force, because you saw those numbers.
Yeah.
The work volume is astronomical, and each and every one of those cases go through the court system. But yes, we've got good judges. I was at a meeting this morning when 2 of our judges were there, and Judge West commented on how hardworking the drug task force is, and I appreciated that. And our judicial arm is very supportive of us.
So the majority of heroin is coming from where? Mexico?
Mexico. Well, for us, Detroit. Detroit.
So it's arrived from somewhere else.
Yeah, it can come in through New York, come in that way. It's going to come in out of Flint, or it's going to come in out of Detroit.
The local distributor is out of Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you read our press releases and you'll look at many Wayne County residents, Detroit residents, are caught up in drug raids. It's not uncommon to see 2 Port Huron residents and a Detroit resident. Well, you know what's going on there. Detroit resident's a dealer, and he's got the locals hooked, and he's using their house. It's been going on like that with crack for decades, and now it's doing it with heroin. So, we've got 2 major cities at risk surrounding us and a border.
Yeah.
So, it just makes perfect sense. And if you're the drug dealer from Detroit, you're going to come up here because you can charge more for your product. In Detroit, the drug dealers are not afraid of the police. They're afraid of getting killed by other drug dealers.
Right.
Up here, they're not afraid of the police either, or getting killed by other drug dealers, because we don't have that level of violence yet. So they come up here, and then they can run strong arm over the locals and then charge more money. What they don't realize is that when you get arrested in St. Clair County, that conservative jury of your peers will send you to prison for a good long time. And that's what happens in our county, because we have a 99% conviction rate. So when we catch you, we will send you to prison. And our judges will do it in a split second. But when they leave, 1 more comes in their place.
Are they serving their terms?
Well,
do they get early out?
A whole nother topic. And
yes, no, and maybe.
Yeah, a lot of those are budgetary constraints at the state level that are really out of my control.
Right.
But I think the population for our jails is the right amount right now, and the right people are there.
So bottom line is the public should be aware of what's going on in front of them.
Absolutely.
Stay alert.
Stay away from these pills.
Yep.
Stay away from these pain medicines. If you absolutely do not need these, don't get on these opiates for knee injury or a back surgery, try to avoid them, non-narcotic painkillers. You know, we're under this assumption that you could take a pill for everything and feel perfect every day.
Right.
You know, it's an onslaught
Still
of...
be 21 years old.
Yep, it's a TV commercial after commercial, but you need this medicine, you need that medicine. Well, no, you don't. You know, part of growing old is getting aches and pains. And you know, you can go through life with a little bit of a sore shoulder or a sore knee and, you know, do your physical rehabilitation. You know, stay away from these pills if you can. I mean, there's a need in times and cases, but so many of these people that I have found that are heroin addicts are just like you and I. They're Joe Lunchbox, working stiffs like us, and middle class folks that ended up in a circumstance where they needed medication and now they're hooked and then they get on heroin. So I strongly recommend stay away from that, educate yourself. Secondly, you know, dispose of your medicine when you're done with it. Don't put it away for that rainy day when you need it, because it's going to get in the wrong hands. So stay away from that stuff. And obviously on the meth, if you see anything, these containers, these vessels, these things on the trails, call us, because there's probably a meth lab that they got the product and disposed of it. So, you know, call the Drug Task Force. That's what they're there for. We've got that 1-800 number, and the way we do our job is by the tips, and they lead us to the information, and it's all anonymous. So call and continue the support, because we can't do it without the support of the public.
His name is Sheriff Tim Donnellon. We're going to send, thank you very much for bringing us up to date. And
My pleasure.
We'll have you back again to talk about those other subjects as they come along.
Absolutely.
Canada's changing some laws that are going to affect Michigan probably.
Yep.
With marijuana, and does that happen this year or next year?
Well, you know, anything that goes on in Canada is going to affect us, because we share a border.
Right.
We've got 2 bridges and 2 ferry crossings, and we've got a great relationship with the, you know, Sarnia PD, RCMP, OPP, all of those law enforcement agencies. We do a lot of collaboration. We got great relationships. We spend the whole summer, the sheriff's office does, on that river.
Yep.
Doing events with our Canadian counterparts. So with that said, any law that happens over there, we're going to have some effects.
That's right.
Good, bad, or indifferent. It's coming our way. So it's just a river across the street. So we'll see what happens in Canada.
See you, my friend.
My pleasure. My
Very
pleasure.
Good. That's about it for this special edition of the Focus program. A very important topic, and we thought we better get the sheriff in here to give us a little expanded exposure on what's happening in the county. Till next time, I'm Paul Dingeman. Thanks very much for tuning in.
Thanks for watching Focus with Paul Dingeman. Focus is produced at the CTV Community Television Studios in St. Clair. For over 20 years, CTV has captured the moments that matter to our community.